So I'm going to try to talk about the ins and outs, the ups and downs, so that you'll be able to make a wise decision when you decide if you're going to make a shipment at all, and no less importantly, with who you'll be taking care of the shipping. Let's see, why doesn't it? There we go. So just a quick overview. Things have been shipped for years, for thousands of years, and almost always by ship. More modern solutions, of course, have been by rail, by trucking, airline, even by rocket ship. They're all called shipments, and that was sort of the first way of shipping large quantities of goods. But interestingly enough, the first major improvement and change was only in the late 1950s. Until then, shipments were all made up of just piles of stuff. Containers was that new invention. The advantages are pretty obvious. Uniformity means that they can be easily planned. They can easily move from a vessel to a train to a truck. And then it provides much better protection for the goods, much quicker handling, no more moving everything by hand. Longshoremen no longer had to carry everything on their backs. And of course, for storage. The disadvantages, though, are again, because it's uniform, it means when you have something that's a different shape or smaller or larger, you have a problem trying to squeeze everything in to a container. You might have wasted space because you're not filling that container. Here you see a picture on the left, obviously, is a container. These come in 3 different sizes. A 20-foot container refers to the length of the container. A 40-foot container, again, twice as long. And then there's something called a 40-foot high cube, which again is still 40 feet long, but 1 foot taller, gives you about 15% more space. On the right, you see what we call a lift van. Lift vans, and that's why they're called lifts, by the way, but these are wooden crates that are standard sized, about 200 cubic feet. And here you see an open one that's about 2/3 filled. We try to fill those obviously up to the top. But let's talk about terminology. So you know when you know what we're talking about on the shipping side. Of course, we've spoken already about the 20, 40, the 20 foot, the 40 foot, and the high cube container. But you might also hear FCL and LCL. FCL stands for full container load, refers to a full container, obviously. Or maybe instead of saying full, we should call it an exclusive container, where your goods are the only ones in that container. An LCL means a less than container load. Sometimes it's called a partial container load, but that is in a consolidation, which is a container that has 2 or more shipments. Each shipper pays according to the size of their shipment. Lift van we've already spoken about. An overflow shipment. This is something you want to try to avoid. If you're shipping your own exclusive container, an FCL, and not everything quite fits in, you can then ship in what we call an overflow shipment, significantly more expensive on a relative basis than your container is. So that's why it's important to get the right size container and be ready if you know that it's going to be a very full container, be ready in advance not to ship some things. Mark them as second priority to be packed and loaded only on a space available basis. Door to door, that's the standard service that most people will take, where our crew will come, pack everything up, load it in the container or in a truck. When it gets to Israel, we'll clear it through customs and deliver it inside your door in Israel, door-to-door service. There is a door-to-port option, a warehouse to door, warehouse to port, but again, these are in special situations. In most cases, you're going to want a door-to-door option. THC, I want to talk about this a minute because this is the root of a lot of surprises, if we can say it that way, in our business. THC is the abbreviation for terminal handling charges. THC are charges at the port, and they're always known. And there's no reason not to include them up front when you're getting a quote. It is not unusual for, I want to say competitors. We would always tell you up front what the THC is going to cost you. You have every right to know that up front. And like I said, it's a known figure. So there's no reason that it not be told to you. Here's just some pictures. This is the way containers look, as you see in the top left. A container is being lifted on board of the vessel. On the bottom, you can see a container ship sailing under a bridge. On the top, you can see how it looks from the end. Let's go over the process. You're going to get bids from, I recommend, 2 or more shippers. And you can't just go in the yellow pages. I don't know if anybody goes in the yellow pages anymore, but even if you go online, you want to make sure you're talking to a shipper who has experience shipping to Israel and knows the lane, works the lane. The first step in order to get a well-based quote is to have what's called a pre-move survey. That would be a situation where our agent in your area will get a tour of the house. You'll show us around. This is going, this is staying, this is maybe going. I'm thinking of buying X. All that information will let us know the approximate volume of your shipment and therefore what size container or partial container you need. Then when we send you a quote, it will be a well-based quote. You want to make sure that you're comparing apples to apples when you look at the different quotes that you get. Part of the difficulty that you will have, and I'll tell you this up front, is that we use different terminology. I, in my quote, like to list the various charges and so that you know what you're paying for. There are others who say that's so confusing. There's 5 or 6 different line items. And another one of my competitors might list everything in one line only. It makes it difficult to compare, but it's very important that you get bottom line figures from each of your suppliers or each of your potential suppliers so you can make a good comparison. Once you've decided who you're working with, book the job, get in the diary, and especially if you want to pack towards the end of the month. The last week of every month year round is the busiest in our business because that's when everybody's contracts, rental or sales contracts, go into effect. Sort and pre-pack your goods. I mean, you don't even have to pre-pack, but you're going to sort your goods and get rid of all those things you don't want. Organize your home so that when the crew arrives, they'll be able to pack everything. And I want to mention, you see there where it says PBO, that stands for packed by owner. That hasn't, when something is packed by owner, the insurance company will not cover breakage or damage because they don't know how good a packer you are. They will only cover breakage and damage when it's been quote unquote professionally packed by our crews. On the day of packing, as I mentioned, you're going to have everything organized. What they're not taking should be hidden away or in a room with an X on the door so that it's very clear what is to go and what is to stay. And of course, may have a lot of cold water and hot coffee for the crew because they're going to be doing a lot of work that day. And patience is always a good thing to have in hand. I mentioned before that we're going to do an in-home survey where we determine the volume of your goods. We will prepare a document like this where we would list all the various items that are going and their volume. Now, this will also help you if you have a little bit too much, ask for the survey report, and then you can go over and say, well, I have to get down 50 cubic feet. You can see that this is, if you look up there and it says on the far right side, the curio cabinet is 10 cubic feet. So that will allow you to know that if you get rid of 5 of those, you're going to get down 50 cubic feet and be able to squeeze in to the container. When on the packing day, as we pack, the crew will number every box and they'll fill out a form like you see on the left, creating the packing list. On the right, you see the numbered stickers that we have, and we will place those on each box. We'll give a simple description of each item, one word. We're not going to put, a big pot in a small pan. It'll just be kitchenware, clothing, books, toys. Those are the kinds of words we will use. Generally, not much more than one or two words will describe the contents of each box. We'll also write the condition. Now, that's generally more for furniture. If there's scratches or smudges or anything else, we'll indicate that on the packing list. Okay, let's see here. So that's, again, just a picture of what the stickers will look like on the box. So let's go on to after everything is packed up, loaded in the container, en route to Israel. Prior to arrival, the delivery agent will be in touch with you to keep you updated on the sailing's arrival, on the vessel's arrival, and start getting paperwork prepared for clearing your shipment through Israeli customs. Any payments, of course, will be taken care of at that same time. Goods will be cleared through customs, and then we will call you to schedule the delivery. The crew will unload everything into your home. Typically, they will unwrap all the furniture, large items, and place the boxes throughout your house. They're not going to put they're not going to put dishes on the shelves, but they will put the box of dishes in the kitchen. After delivery, chas v'chalila, there should be any insurance claims. That would be the next and, of course, last stage. And hopefully the unloading will be the last stage and there will be no insurance claims. So let's talk about negotiations when you're going to book your with a shipping agent. What's negotiable? At the end of the day, everything is. Maybe you want to save some money and you'll take care of all the packing yourself. In most cases, that will save you money. Not a lot, but it will save you money. Although we'll talk about insurance. As I mentioned before, anything that you have packed will not be covered for breakage and damage. Insurance. Maybe you can get a better rate, either with the shipper, with a shipping company, or with your own insurance agent. You can negotiate what's included and what's not. Typically, that's things like the packing material, packing time, loading. These are all things that you can discuss if you want to save some money. Ins and outs. You certainly want to, I think, take the full packing. That is so much easier. The crew will come in 1 to 2 days, depending on the size of your job. They'll finish everything for you. If you pack, and I speak from experience, because when we made Aliyah, I remember packing over a 6-week period, 80 boxes. The guys, when they walked in the door, they finished another 80 boxes in 2 hours. I could have just, let them do it all. You want to make sure that you know all the charges up front. There's no reason for there to be any surprises, except for a few very rare and unusual situations. You should be able to get all the following contact information about the following contacts. The packing team chief, who will be there running leading the crew, who is packing everything up for you. The export manager on the state side. The import manager on the Israeli side. These people will be in touch with you, and there's no reason you should not have their information. And of course, the unloading team chief, you want to make sure that you know who he is and his contact details as well. Full accountability, that's obvious. Why that's important. Tips is something that, well, it's certainly not necessary and no requirement at all. There's no question that if you're pleased with the crew and they've given you good service, they will be very appreciative if you decide to give them a tip. Outs, things you don't want to run into, surprises. Things sometimes do happen. We don't have to look very far. When the Houthis, the Shmutis started firing from Yemen, that changed everything that was coming from the east. And obviously, you're coming from the west, so that anything coming from the United States did not have many problems. But that was a huge surprise that caused tremendous price increases at the beginning. Another thing that you don't want to have, of course, is a lack of responsibility by the receiving agent. You want whoever you're dealing with to take responsibility, resolve issues and problems, and make your shipment go smoothly. And another out, as I mentioned before, the THC terminal handling charges, they should not be unreported. You are entitled to know them up front. Ups, on-time arrival of the crew. We, of course, when our crews go out, we always try to arrive on time. Sometimes things happen. If it's traffic or if it's a backup in the port, if we have to pull an empty container, you should be updated when things happen that cause the crew to be late. But that's something you're entitled to. Professional packing, obviously. No breakage. Nobody wants breakage, that's for sure. The numbered boxes and inventory, the packing list, these are the types of things you're entitled to and you should get. And finally, your salesperson should be with you throughout from door to door. They've you've made an agreement with them. You're entitled to have them at your side, at least via email, throughout the process. Downs, again, are going to be a late arrival, unreasonable delay in shipping. And by the way, I'll just throw it out now. Right now, there's a huge problem in Greece. Since the Turkish embargo on shipments to Israel, a lot of Turkish cargo is going via Greece, and there's a huge increase. So any vessel that needed to shuttle into Israel from Greece is delayed tremendously. We're running now into a 4 to 5 week delay when containers change vessels in Greece. Strikes, there really haven't been strikes in a long time. Fortunately, I'm very happy about that. I hope that will continue. And of course, surprises. Nobody likes surprises. So a few tips. Walk around on the day of packing, walk around with a magic marker. Feel very comfortable to write on every box, a 1 word, 2 words that will help you tell the delivery crew in Israel where to put these boxes. If it's the name of your kid's room, if it's kitchen, if it's living room, if it's like, write that on the box and write it whenever you write in a box, write it in at least 2 places. Because if you write in only 1 place, you can be sure that 1 place will be against the crew's belly as he's carrying the box in. PBO, pack by owner boxes. Write a one if you do pack any boxes, write a 1-word description of the contents so our crew can prepare the packing list. Prepare the house, we've talked about this before. Make it very clear what is to stay and what is to go. Organize things. If you're going to have 2 delivered locations, maybe you're having some things going to a storage room, even if it's in the same building as your apartment. Make sure that those things are clearly marked so that the loading crew will load them separately, make it go much more smoothly when we do delivery. Feel free to jump up on the truck when it arrives to measure the lift, the wooden crates, the lift van, just to be sure that what you're being charged is what the lift actually is measured at. Make sure that the lift van is full. It can be cut down. There are smaller crates and smaller cartons. You should not have to pay for a half-empty lift van. And follow up. Stay on top of your shipment. feel free to get in touch with your salesperson or with the import manager, the export manager, to find out what's going on with your shipment, with your container, where it is it on the vessel, when is it expected to arrive? And try to get the first packing of the day. If you have a smaller shipment, it's not unusual to be 2 or more shipments on the same day. If you are the first packing of the day, our arrival time, we can tell you when we're going to arrive, generally. If it's the second or the third packing of the day, it's more difficult to be accurate. Bulky items. Our crew will dismantle things like tables and beds, but they will not dismantle like an entertainment center or cabinets, closets, things like that. And those would be, if you want them to save space and you are paying for space, you should dismantle those prior to the crew's arrival. And then be ready to reassemble them when they're delivered in Israel. You can put light, fluffy things in drawers and in shelves. And when I say light, fluffy, the crew still has to be able to lift those cabinets or shelves, those dressers. But you can't put in things like pillows, fluffy sweaters, fluffy blankets. Things like sheets are heavy and are not a good idea, and certainly nothing like books, things that are hard. Because besides the weight that it will add to the dresser, keep in mind it's going to be going for 3 weeks or a month or longer on the water, and will be rocking back and forth on every wave. If you put books in there, it's going to be tapping against the drawers, and it will loosen the joints and potentially cause damage. Be a good consumer. Check the prices of new goods in Israel versus the cost of shipping. See if it makes sense to ship various large items. Talked about this, filling in the furniture with lightweight items. And try to avoid, if you can, the last week of the month. The last week of every month is the busiest for us throughout the industry. And to the extent you can, try to pack up in the first 3 weeks of the month. And avoid the summer. We do 70% of our annual business in 3 months of the summer throughout the industry. And as you can imagine, it's crazy busy then. Fortunately, we're very happy about that. But to the extent you can avoid the summer, try to. So again, we talked about comparing apples to apples, check what is included, and no less important what is not included. Everything that's going to definitely be charged should be included and should be stated up front. And exactly here I'm saying it, the contract must include all possible charges of destination. And it's not good enough to say, as charged, we will charge you as per invoice. We know all those charges. There's no reason for things like THC and port charges not to tell you up front. Oh, THC and delivery charges. There we go. Those are all known and all should be told to you in advance. So in summary, I will wish you Batzlacha, much good luck. Patience is always helpful, and time cures all. And I'll finish with that. It really is important for you to be here. We need you in Israel and look forward to welcoming you home. And Shira?
Yes, thank you so much, Shmuel. We have some questions in the Q&A. I don't know if you can see them, but I'm also happy to ask you the questions and we can go through them.
Okay, I don't know if I know where to find the Q&A.
Okay, great. So I will ask you the questions and we can go through. So we'll start at the top. We have UPS, a major US shipping company, is closing a bunch of facilities in the US. Is that expected to affect shipping of household goods to Israel?
Totally unrelated. We have nothing to do. The household the household goods business has nothing to do with UPS, which is more package and envelopes and things like that. So we'll make
Great. Is this different? Is any of the information today different from Canada to the US, or do the information today like apply to both?
It's more or less this, virtually identical.
Okay, great. The question is specific to a lift. Is it legal or the reality to share one of these lifts to reduce expenses?
This is, first of all, as licensed customs brokers, we can never know if you have, if you have somebody that's hitching a ride with you. Is it allowed? I mean, listen, we go to customs, we say, these are Moshe's things. We can't know that David has things in there as well. If Moshe and David work something out, then we don't know. You know, it's better, and just like when you take something on the plane, if David puts guns and drugs in there, which obviously is unlikely, I'm sure Moshe is going to be going to jail. Those are the kinds of issues that that could come up.
Right. Ari, do you maybe want to address this just from a nefesh standpoint in terms of benefits? I know that sharing lifts can sometimes be affected by the fact that you're getting an Aliyah benefit for your shipment. Is that something you want to jump in about?
Can you hear me? We're good?
Yes, we can
All
hear
right.
you.
So just two things very quickly then to be aware of is the fact that and Shmuel could probably speak very well to it because he deals with this about the Aliyah benefit is that the state of Israel will waive the import taxes on the shipment, but that only goes to the person who is shipping it, or the person or the name, I would imagine that's there. Shmuel, correct me if I'm getting
No,
this.
that's 100% right.
Okay, so it's
100% right.
So I know that the rule on our Facebook group is that we don't allow people to share lifts because it's a sharing of, it's you have a benefit that's yours, and then you'd be sharing it.
Yeah.
There's also a consideration. I'm sorry, Shmuel, just really quickly. A consideration that the Aliyah benefit is limited also in number. So a person is only allowed to import a certain number of certain items and receive the benefit. So if, in theory, if you have a friend that's putting a refrigerator and you also want to, you're not going to get the benefit for both because you're only allowed to utilize the benefit for one.
That's absolutely correct. We discourage it because it's just there's too many downsides. There's too many. I mean, that's it. There's just too many downsides. And by the way, at the end of the day, there's usually not much of if any of a savings, because the minute that you have two pickups and two deliveries, you have to then sort things between inside the container. That usually eats up any savings that you might have had anyway.
Okay, what is the best strategy if I need to ship from 2 locations?
I mean, we would, depending on the size of each pickup location, we would just send a truck to, by the way, we're talking the same city, the same area. If you're talking about something from Los Angeles and something from New York, I would definitely just make 2 shipments because the shipping cross country would be more expensive. But if it's in the same area, you would just ask your shipping agent for a price for a second pickup.
Okay, for a 6 square meter lift container, what are the interior dimensions?
I would have to come back to you. I don't know them by heart. Of course, got to have them on a sheet, but the size of well, not 6 cubic meters, not 6 cubic meters, really 5.7 cubic meters with that standard lift fan that I showed you before. The external dimensions are, I know them in meters. It's about 7 feet 6 inches high, 7 feet 6 inches long, and about 4 meters, did I say meters? 4 feet wide.
Okay, great. Is it better to ship my car or buy a new one in Israel?
For me, it's better if you ship the car. But that being said, generally, if you have bought a car off of lease, that becomes the purchase price, and therefore your taxes are typically lower. You're going to pay approximately 80% tax on your OLED car. You can only bring one, and you can only buy one. If you ship a car, you will pay that same 80%, but you can get a car of any age as an Ole Hadash, import a car of any age. So you can typically get a much cheaper car and pay far less taxes, even though the percentage is the same if you buy a new one in Israel or import a used one. So if you get a good deal, it's usually worthwhile. If it's not a good deal, it probably makes more sense to get it here in Israel.
We bought a king size bed, only a year old. Should I ship it or sell it?
Depends very much on the size of the apartment the home that you're moving into, if it will fit. Homes are bigger nowadays in Israel than they used to be when I made Aliyah, about 1 million years ago. So people have king size beds here. If you know what size apartment you're moving into, then you can make that decision. But if you don't know, you're taking a chance that it won't fit.
Okay, the next question is about the Houthis, which I think you already addressed, of if that's affecting the Mediterranean.
Yeah, I mean, it has no effect on anything coming from the west. It's really only things coming from the east.
Do you go to someone's house in the US to give estimates? And what if they live in an uncommon area?
We can generally go any place. We might do the estimate via video and not in person. That's become much more popular since COVID. That's got much more formalized. But we would always want to do a survey before we give a quote. And then, of course, the crew, though, they do come in person. They don't do backing by video. Not yet. We're working on that.
Okay, great. Talk about shipping times so we know how long we're doing without whatever we pack.
It depends, of course, from where you're shipping. If it's from the West Coast, you're looking at about 2 months on the water. If you're shipping from the East Coast, not including Florida, which takes longer, but from the East Coast, you're looking at it should be between 6 and 8 weeks for an exclusive container, and 7 to 10, 11 weeks for a shared container for a consolidation. The only problem with those numbers is that, as I mentioned, now the cheaper shipping line that changes vessels in Greece is getting held up for about 4 to 5 weeks longer than normal. And that's adding significant amount of time. Most shipping companies, we do it anyway, offer an upgrade to Zim, which does not change vessels along the way, and is pretty much sticking to 35 days on the water. So add a week and a half before and after, you're looking at about 7 weeks door to door.
If the stuff is in a storage unit and in an apartment, will you go to the storage unit to pick things up and go to the apartment? And is that considered
sure.
like it's considered 2 different pickups?
Absolutely 2 different pickups, and there would be an extra charge for that, unless they're next door or, right next to each other.
Okay, what's the current lead time door to door from Toronto for a 20-foot container and for lift vans?
I'm not sure I understand the lead time, and when should you book the pickup?
I would assume that's what they mean, yeah.
Okay, so if it's when should you book? Listen, if you're looking to pick up in the summer, book as soon as you decide which company, book. Get in their diary, because as we get closer and closer to the summer, especially to the ends of each month, as I mentioned, it gets more and more difficult to get an available crew. So as soon as you make a decision, just get in the diary, book. There's no right time. The sooner is the better.
Please explain how to fill out the declaration of personal import of goods.
If you're talking for the Israeli for Israeli customs, it's pretty straightforward. We actually have prepared and gotten approval from Israeli customs to provide it looks like a spreadsheet, pretty straightforward spreadsheet. In most cases, you're only going to need to put values on about 5 lines. There's one line for used furniture, one line for clothing, one line for linen, one line for toys, one line for kitchenware, and you're generally finished with that. If you have new items, new furniture, then that would require more line items to enter. But it's generally 4 or 5 lines is all you have to do, fill in.
Okay, great. How do you handle high value items? For example, a piano or something like that. Are they insured for replacement and cost if damaged?
So all of your items will be insured if you take out an insurance policy. We do not require you to take an insurance policy. If you want, you can. And if you've taken out an insurance policy, you'll declare the value of your pianos, of your Picassos, all your goods, including your high valued items.
Okay, great. Is it better to write the contents and instructions on the boxes in English or Hebrew?
It's going to start in English, and I don't want to mislead you. I don't know if the delivery crew will know English or Hebrew. As you may imagine, many of our crew are new immigrants. We have a lot of French crews, a lot of Russian crews, and as I said, I don't know how well their English or Hebrew is going to be in any case. One thing that I found very helpful, as I mentioned before, walk around with a magic marker and write on the box in English and Hebrew, it doesn't matter, the destination of that box. Another idea is to get a bunch of different colored dots and stickers and just stick in 2 different places on each box. Everything with the blue sticker goes to the kitchen, everything with the red dot goes to the living room, et cetera, et cetera. And that way, when the delivery crew comes to your home, they will easily be able to see to which room they should put those boxes.
Do you have to go to the port to sign anything before the shipment is released?
No, I'm pleased to say about 5 or 6 years ago, Customs discovered the internet. Until then, we did have to have clients come to us and sign in front of us so we could witness their signature. Nowadays, they let us do everything via scan and fax. Who has a fax anymore? But scanning and photographs covers everything.
Can some items be PBO and others packed by shipper, or does that negate insurance? Example, packing of books by owner, but packing full for everything else.
That's a real good question. In a situation like that, I recommend people take out 2 insurance policies. One that would be all risk and cover all risk, breakage, damage, falling in the sea. And that would be all the things that have been professionally packed by our crew. And a second policy that costs less that would only provide what's called total loss coverage, which is falling in the sea. It will not cover breakage or damage. And frankly, I've never seen a broken book or a broken shirt. But that would be on a second policy. All the things that you have packed that are packed by owner would be on that cheaper, less expensive policy.
Okay, sorry. Can I ship medical equipment? Will I be able to take it on the plane?
If it goes on the plane or not, that you should check with the airline that you're flying on. You can certainly ship medical equipment, but I would recommend talking to your salesman to have them check. Oh, we have an in-house customs broker. I would go to him and say, if you're shipping, I don't know what, X-ray equipment, which is not likely, I guess, but I would definitely go and ask if there's any issues or permits that are needed if you let me know what you're shipping.
Okay, great. What happens if we have stuff in storage and it has to be repacked by the company? Is that possible?
Sure, not a problem at all.
Great.
You might want to point it out to the crew when they arrive, even though and I don't want to make any comments about our crews, but I don't know how much they read actually. They actually read the instructions that we give them because they always have an instruction sheet. And I would say all goods to be repacked. But they would come and see that everything is nicely packed. They might say there's really no need for it. I would still ask them to open every box and make sure that the packing material is still sufficient for a safe journey. And you should certainly feel comfortable asking the crew to do that.
Does the shipping company provide all the cartons?
Yes. Easy answer. All the packing material, tape, everything, bubble wrap, paper blankets, everything is provided. The crew will arrive with everything that they need.
How worthwhile is it to ship a washing machine?
Nowadays, again, we brought a Maytag when we came. It lasted 6 kids, 25 years. It was great. Today, as I mentioned, taxes have gone way down, and it's not like it used to be in Israel. So I would very much recommend. There's a website called zap.co.il. I would very much recommend going on that website. It's a price comparison website, and you can see what a Manor fridge would cost here versus buying it there and shipping it. So washing machine, the same as a fridge or a dryer or a dishwasher. The only appliances, and I'm sad to say this, sorry to have to say this, but the only appliances that are really worthwhile bringing today are things like a Sub-Zero, Viking. Those high-end appliances are super marked up here in Israel and are still very worthwhile to bring from the States.
Ari, yeah, go for
Sure.
it.
Just to throw in, I'm sure Shmuel, I'm sure you'll agree as well. From an Aliyah planning aspect, any items that you're bringing to Israel, big items, please make sure that the apartment or house that you're moving into is big enough to hold them, that you're able to get them through the door. And also, many washing machines, for example, U.S. North American washing machines have a hot and cold water intake. If you're moving into an older apartment, because they're built on European standards, you may find that in the laundry room there's only a cold water intake. So these are things, if you know where you're going to be moving to, there are things you can check out ahead of time before bringing your items.
That is so true. And you didn't mention though, we paid a lot of money to move our washer and dryer twice. We had to have a technician come and take it apart. And the Maytag washer and dryer didn't fit through the door. So it's a good point.
Okay, will the absence of coffee, if someone doesn't have coffee in their house, be a problem for the crew?
Oh, that's not a problem. Just something nice.
Okay. How do I check prices for items in Israel when they don't have stores like Costco, Walmart, IKEA, etc.?
First of all, we have IKEA in Israel. But that's website that I recommended before, zap.co.il. It's in Hebrew, but it's still a really good resource for new items. And if you want to also look, there's a website, Yad2, yad2.co.il, which is another good source of price comparison information. It's for secondhand stuff, but they have lots of new stuff today as well.
Okay, great. Can I bring over an e-bike?
No, I'm glad you brought that up. No, no, no. It is not allowed. Not a hoverboard. Are they called? Not an electronic scooter. None of those are allowed. In fact, let me just even if you can give me a screen share again.
Yeah.
Do I have to do it or did you do it?
You do it.
Okay, so then let's see what I need. How do I do that? Screen share. Share. Okay. Now let me There we are. These are things you do not want to send. There's obvious things here, right? You know, drugs, fire extinguisher, guns. Don't even think about that kind of stuff. Here's the electric bicycle that you asked about, scooters, skateboard, and helmets. Helmets, please note. Here's another surprise. Besides helmets, look over here, baby car seats. You're not allowed to import those. They require permits by the Ministry of Transportation. And obviously, to bring in one or two or three, you're not going to go through the expense and the hassle of doing that. So those are not allowed to be shipped. Wine and liquors, and this is brand new. Until 2-3 months ago, you could bring in up to 120 bottles of wine liquor, and they changed it. Now you have to get a permit from the Wine Institute, and this is so new, we don't even really know how to get the Wine Institute approval, but that's a very recent change. Foodstuffs, you're allowed to bring it up to 15 kilo of dry food, and is duty free. If we find out how to import wine and liquor, that would not be duty free, and that you would have to pay taxes on. There are limits on spices, 500 grams of each type of spice. And those of you who are thinking of bringing in saffron, only 20 grams. Nobody's going to weigh any of this stuff. You will be making a declaration, though, as part of the customs clearing process. So,
Okay. Do you recommend making Aliyah and moving first and then coming back and shipping your household items?
that's what I did. We did. When we made Aliyah, we did a small shipment, and then we moved in. That was back in the day when you went first to a Merkaz Klita, and we lived for a year. During that, after we found our apartment, my wife went back and we brought a whole container of furniture. It's certainly doable. To the extent you can limit the number of shipments, each shipment has about $700 to $800 in one-off fees, customs clearing, export documents, all kinds of things like that. To the extent that you can ship fewer shipments and bring more in one shipment, you'll save money. But that's not always possible, especially if you're not sure where you're moving when you leave the States.
What is the price of a container or part of a container?
Way too much. It's impossible to give a number without really knowing what we're talking about. It depends where you're from. New Jersey is cheaper than New York because of the bridges and the tolls. Cal Vachomer, Chicago, Miami, and forget about the West Coast is crazy expensive. So I can't give a meaningful number.
Okay. Is cost by weight or volume?
In most cases, by volume. There are some American shippers that I work with who don't handle that much business to Israel, but work a lot with the military or with the State Department, who only work by weight. And so they work by weight. And I would quote, if it's in those cities, places like Kansas City, St. Louis, I think some in Baltimore. It doesn't really matter, but there are a few places in which I work with agents who do charge by weight. Although in most cases it's only by volume.
The pros and cons of shipping lots of books USPS versus on a lift.
If you only have, a few boxes of books, so then UPS or the post office will take boxes up to 20 kilo or 44 pounds. To the extent that you only have a few, it's probably cheaper that way. But I think I don't really know because I don't work with them obviously, but I think they charge upwards of $200 a box. So if you have more than a few boxes, it's going to be worthwhile shipping, shipping with a shipping company.
Okay. How far in advance should we seek quotes and book?
As I mentioned, I mean, if you can start 2, 3 months in advance, 3 months in advance, that would be fine. Everything can be done easily with ease, no pressure, no rush. Answer all the questions you have. I do have people that call me and want to move in a week. I mean, that's, I always wonder what, you never notice you're moving across the world. But people's change their minds about what they do on a ship or what they want to take on the plane. And so if you can start 3 months in advance, that would be a good time to start.
Okay. In terms of contacts for other shippers, how do you suggest people find shippers? Do you ship from all over the US and Canada? We got a bunch of
We
questions
ship
like that.
we ship from all over, any place in the States and Canada. I mean, virtually any place. We do a lot of shipments for the Israeli Foreign Ministry for the diplomats, and Israeli diplomats are all over the place. I mean, I'll tell you places you wouldn't believe. But and the truth is, even for other diplomats, we'll send to Lebanon, we've sent to Syria, we've sent to Iran for U.S. Embassy shipments and things like that. It's not common. So that's not an issue. In terms of finding other shippers, I can't tell you that that's a company secret. Now, of course, you can go on to Nefesh's website, and they can that I believe that Nefesh has a list of shipping companies, and if not, then certainly in all the Facebook groups you can get that kind of information. But nobody's jokes are as good as mine.
Okay. Sorry, just keeping up with all the questions. How do I ship pallets?
Oh, if you have a pallet that's been built, that's been wrapped and ready to go, and we can arrange to either pick that up from your home, or you can bring it to the nearest agent that I work with. No, that's not a problem at all. You just have to make sure the pallet is well built and strong. I had somebody who got a couple of pallets, put boxes on, took I think a box of saran wrap and just wrapped it, and it completely fell apart in transit. And we didn't even know by the time the trucker brought it and it changed trucks and got to my agent in San Francisco. We had no idea that it had fallen apart because the trucking company en route had rebuilt the pallet. But unfortunately, they took 2 pallets and rebuilt them as 3. So we never knew that there was a missing third pallet. So, if you're going to build your own pallets, make sure they're solidly wrapped and banded so they don't fall apart en route.
What if, and we're getting a lot of questions of how long can my lift stay at the port in Israel? What if I don't have a home yet? What do I do about storage?
Okay, sure. If you're sending a partial container shipment, so then you're good. You get 30 days of free storage from the vessel's arrival. And if you need longer storage, it's also available. It's also possible. If you have your own container, though, you only get 4 free days of storage, and from day 5 the port starts to charge. And even worse, also, I don't know if it's worse, but the shipping line owns the containers. They give you 7 days to use their container as a storeroom, as it were, and they start charging you rental from day 8. So if it's going to be a while until you have your home, you would definitely want to clear the shipment, clear the container, and get it unloaded so you can return the empty to the shipping line. And your shipping company will definitely be able to offer you storage if needed. There is a cost to that unloading and then reloading onto the delivery truck. So to the extent you can avoid it, you certainly would want to.
Can you bring in, we have questions about gas barbecues, weapons, and regular bike helmets, like no special grade helmets.
Okay, barbecues are no longer an issue. We actually fought very hard to get them to cancel the import permit that used to be required. So barbecues used or new, 1 unit is tax exempt. So there's no issue with that at all. Weapons, I'm certainly no expert on this, but from what I know, you have to bring weapons with you on the plane, not with you on the plane, but you have to let the airline know ahead of time, and they will take the weapon, and they will not give it back to you when you get to Israel. They hand it over to the Israeli police, who will hold it until you get a gun license. I super recommend, don't even think about it. It's just not, it's too many issues. What was the third thing that was there?
I have lithium ion batteries also.
Oh, okay. Talk about batteries in just a second. Helmets was the other question.
Yes.
As I mentioned before, helmets are not allowed. I'm not going to say take it with you on the plane. I think you could take it on the plane, but they're not allowed to be shipped. Lithium ion batteries. Batteries in general. I mean, I used to be able to ship an electric car with it was no big deal. And then they started, it was only if it was a Tesla, because everybody knew it was electric. But I could ship other electric cars. And then now it's gotten much more difficult to ship even hybrid cars. Not much more difficult, much more expensive. There's a lot more paperwork. It is now considered hazardous materials, and you need all kinds of permits to ship it. So that's why we also do not take lithium ion batteries at all. And I'm talking even like little AA batteries. And kal vachomer, things like electric drills, you cannot ship the batteries anymore.
Okay, great. Okay. What's the smallest shipment that someone can make?
Well, I mean, 100 cubic feet is certainly possible. That's the equivalent of about, if you can imagine, not even about 2.5 refrigerators, the regular ones, not the big side by side. That's about 100 cubic feet. But the cost of 100 cubic feet is only a little bit less than the cost of 200 cubic feet. So if that gives you some direction.
Okay, great. I'm sorry, just searching through here what we haven't answered. Are there warehouses throughout Jerusalem, or where can we ship to?
There's at least one self-storage that I know of in Jerusalem. They're usually full and never don't have space. It's near Talpiot in that area. But I know that there's also a place in Mishor Adomim that has a lot of space. So there are options, not a lot, but there are options.
Okay. So there are smaller options. When somebody doesn't have enough to fill a container, we're getting a few questions about that. Then how would that work?
Okay, well we're doing what we call a consolidation, a partial container shipment. We put those together all the time. We out of the central or the main cities, New York, New Jersey, actually, Chicago, San Francisco, and during the summer out of Houston, and sometimes out of Los Angeles. Unrelated to that question, though, but related to Los Angeles, I really want to mention the Port of LA is a total fiasco in terms of customs pulling containers at export for an inspection. And those inspections cost thousands of dollars. I've had the most expensive one. I had a 20-foot container that was held up for about 6 weeks, and there was an almost $8,000 charge. So I never ship anything out of Los Angeles. I either rail it to the East Coast or to Houston and ship out of there. If it's a partial container shipment that we are just talking about in Los Angeles, I'll truck it up to San Francisco. Anything to avoid the port of Los Angeles. So that's sort of a bonus answer, not really to the question so much.
Okay. Here, sorry, my apologies. Do you charge, or do people generally charge to give an estimate, or is that free of charge?
Oh, we never charge for it. And in fact, it's important in our business, it's important for us too, because if you decide to use us or any company, we want to know what we have to do. And we don't want to be surprised when I say we, the crew, we don't want the crew to be surprised when they open the door and they say, hey, nobody told us there was X, Y, Z. So the survey is as important for us as it is for you, and we never charge for it.
Okay, great. The other question that I have here, so first of all, I'm just gonna say we have passed our hour time limit. So I'm gonna ask one more question, and then Shmuel, I'll leave it up to you whether or not you wanna continue,
I'm
or if
good.
people can be in touch with you via email. What is the best way for people to pay? Can they use checks, dollars, shekel?
I'm really glad that question came up. You can pay in shekels or dollars. Always try to pay in the currency that the quote is in. Anytime that you pay in a different currency, it gets much more. You always lose in the exchange rate, and it can be as much as 3 to 4%. So that's one thing. You can certainly wire funds from the States. I very much recommend go to your bank before you get on the plane and work out with them how you can do wires from a distance. You will not be able to get codes that they would send you by text because you won't have a US number, and they generally will not send text messages internationally. So make sure you made those arrangements ahead of time. Wiring is the best way to pay us. You can pay by credit cards, but I think most of us add uh, um, 2.5% or 3% to any credit card payments. So it's generally is expensive. I know that we're limited to accepting up to 2,000 shekel via the phone, and if it's more than 2,000 shekel, you have to come and swipe the card physically in our Ashdod office. So wiring is really, without a doubt, the best way to take care of payment.
Okay. Shmuel, if you want to answer a few more, we can definitely continue doing that.
It's
But
it's fine with me. I've got no.
okay, great. So we'll go for another few minutes. I'm just trying to. So people want to know how much before Aliyah you suggest sending it. Should they, wait for their Aliyah visa, those types of
Yeah,
things.
no, again, a really good question, and something when you're trying to decide how long before your flight to do the pickup, to do the packing, you have to figure out where's it easiest to camp out. You're going to be without your things at least 6 to 7 weeks, if not more. And you're going to have to camp out if you ship your beds and everything else. Is it easier to camp out in the States? Do you have family, friends there that you can crash with? Or do you have in Israel family or friends? Because you're going to be without your goods that long. If it's easiest in the States, then maybe you'll pack up 2 months in advance. If it's easiest, maybe you're going to be taking an Airbnb when you get to Israel, and then you would pack up just before you leave. But again, picking a pickup date is going to depend on where is it easiest for you to camp out. Okay.
Okay, great. trying to see, we discussed fragile items. There's a lot of concern about art collections, pianos, statuettes, things like that.
Our crews that go out every day, and that's what they're doing. They're packing day in and day out crystal, pianos, chandeliers. This is what they do, and they're very adept at it. They're very adept at it, and they come with all the packaging that they need. If you have a baby grand or a grand piano, so that would most likely require a wooden crate that we would prepare in advance. If you have, with artwork, I mean, there's a range from Picasso on one side and the much more important pictures with magnets on the refrigerator from your kids. Someplace in between there is where most paintings, most artwork is. And you have to let us know if it's on the expensive side. So maybe you would want to have a custom crate built. If it's closer to the pictures on the fridge with the magnets, so then that probably you would just let our crew pack. Regular paintings, we would, if it's oil, we would cover it with I think it's called glassine paper, and then wrap with bubble wrap, and then take a box that's not, boxes all come flat before we fold them and make them into a box. We would leave them flat and just slide the painting into that box and then close the top on the bottom for a regular painting that doesn't require a custom built crate. I hope that answers that question.
And in terms of for insurance, it says you need receipts for claims. So what about family heirlooms, things like that?
I don't know that you necessarily need receipts for claims. The insurance company will do their due diligence. If you have a small $100, $200, $300 claim, they're not going to get into it. But if you put in a $5,000 claim for the dining room table, then they might come back and say, where's that number from? And then you could send them a link to eBay or to a site on the internet showing a similar or the same item. They just want to know that the claimed amount is a reasonable amount. And if you have artwork, so maybe you will have had an appraiser come and do an appraisal. That would be then fabulous. They would, there's no discussion. That's a third party professional valuation. But in most cases, something from the internet will work for proof of value if they come back and ask for that.
Okay. Can we maybe just address the average cost of shipping cars? We have a lot of questions about that.
Okay. So a regular gas car that's brought to our warehouse in New Jersey, and then we would clear it through customs and hand it over to you from the warehouse in Ashdod or in Haifa. That's going to run you today about $3,500. If you're shipping an electric or partially electric car, it's probably closer to $4,500. Again, from New Jersey to Ashdod or Haifa. We do offer the service of after it clears, pulling it out of the port, delivering it, getting it registered, but that is an extra fee, and you can do that on your own.
Okay. Sorry. Okay, one interesting tidbit question I'd say, or we have a few people who have asked, what are the items that you see people have really regretted shipping?
Even though I establish tight or warm relationships with my clients, I mean, oftentimes do, it usually ends once we've done delivery. So in terms of regrets, I don't usually hear regrets because I'm rarely in touch with my client a month or 2 months or a year after delivery. So I really don't know.
Okay. It seems like a lot of these we have covered. Can you just review again the different types of containers? So that a few people seem to be asking for a review
Sure.
on that.
Yeah, when they get the link, by the way, tomorrow, they'll see that, but there's
Yes,
a
exactly.
20-foot container. Again, referring to the length of the container. It's about 8 feet wide and 8 feet high. There's a 40-foot container, obviously 40 feet long, 8 feet wide and 8 feet high. And then the 40-foot high cube container, which again, 40 feet long, 8 feet wide, and about 9 feet high. Those are the three sizes.
And we'll do two last ones just in terms of planning. Do the fall Chagim impact shipping?
Yes. Unfortunately, customs is closed all of Sukkot. So while Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur, generally, it's a day or 2 days, is not a big deal. But from Sukkot, the entire Chag, including Chol HaMoed, customs is closed. So if your container arrives in the middle of Sukkot or at the beginning of Sukkot, it would sit in the port for 8-9 days until it clears and we can get it out. Because we cannot even submit the file for clearing until customs is back in the office. Let me even be more specific. In fact, we would submit that we submit electronically the files for clearing, and some do clear electronically within a couple of hours. But in most cases with household goods, all of our clients are what are called unknown shippers. And therefore, they're rarely will go through electronically. In most cases, the files are reviewed by customs and then released. So if that's, and when I say that in most cases, if it does not clear before Sukkot starts, it's going to wait until after Sukkot. And then you run into storage and container rental or demurrage expenses.
Okay, great. I'm going to hand one over to, I see Yitz from our Aliyah team is on the call. Yitz, can you just address quickly before we finish up what things to bring on the plane with you? We're getting questions of what to bring on the plane or in your luggage versus what to put on a shipment. And I know that there are certain things that we specify to our Olim to bring with them. So is that possible?
Sure.
Sure.
Something that's common that we see and that was asked here a lot was about the car seats. So if somebody needs to use a car seat upon arrival after they get out of the airport, then sure, you should bring that with you on the plane. Shmuel spoke about not shipping them, so that is one way to get it in right away. Often people bring an instrument with them on the plane, especially if they need it right away. Bicycles, I think, are easier to ship than to bring on the plane. Let me think what else is a common thing that we see. I'm not sure if there's many more examples. Jewelry is a tricky thing. You have to declare over a certain amount. So there's no right way of loading up all jewelry on you or in your bags and stuff like that and just bringing it in. That kind of thing would require going through the red line and reporting that. So just follow the rules for what you're allowed to bring on the plane with you. And, any questions, of course, they can reach out to the answers department. I'll be happy to answer specific.
Amazing. And I'll just add one thing, which is bring your Aliyah documents on the plane with you. Do not put them in your lift.
Thank you,
Put them in, do not put them in your checked bags. Make sure you have them with you so that when you go through, you'll be processed properly through Klita. Shmuel, thank you so much for staying on an extra 15 minutes to answer questions. We answered over 100 questions today. We still have a lot more that we were not able to get to. We apologize for that, but we encourage you all to be in touch with Shmuel and use the Nefesh B'Nefesh website as resources. Once again, you will get this recording and resources mentioned in an email tomorrow, so you do not have to worry about that. And we hope you all have a good night and a continued smooth Aliyah process.
להתראות.